The order is already moving. It exists first as language, not action. A sequence of phrases arranged with precision, stamped into place by protocol, copied without alteration. It is read, repeated, transmitted. Each repetition is identical. Each transfer removes it further from intention and closer to consequence. No one reacts to it. Reaction is not required. The order does not ask for understanding. It does not invite interpretation. It carries authority in its structure alone. Measured clauses, exact timing, absolute verbs. It arrives complete. It leaves no margin. It passes through rooms designed for its passage. Desks cleared for paperwork. Wires laid for transmission. Voices trained to deliver without emphasis. Hands that move because they have always moved this way. There is no pause long enough to become doubt. There is only confirmation. Received, acknowledged, forwarded. The system responds instantly, not with urgency but with familiarity. The order fits perfectly into the channels built to carry it. Nothing resists. Nothing slows. It aligns with schedules already prepared, resources already counted, movements already rehearsed. Its arrival does not disrupt the day, it completes it. Somewhere, a clerk verifies the format. Somewhere else, a signal is relayed at the assigned minute. Elsewhere, instructions are logged, filed, marked as active. Each step is clean. Each step is correct. No one asks what happens if it is wrong. The order is not debated because debate would require ownership. This order belongs to the system now. It is no longer a decision. It is a process. Its authority does not come from who issued it, but from how perfectly it moves. Those who receive it recognize the tone immediately. This is not guidance. It is not suggestion. It is not subject to conditions. It does not anticipate resistance, and therefore offers no alternatives. It assumes compliance the way gravity assumes descent. Time is synchronized around it. Watches are adjusted. Calendars align. Movements elsewhere are delayed or accelerated so that this order may proceed without interference. The system bends to accommodate it, because that is what the system is designed to do. There is a quiet confidence embedded in the routine. Everything required for execution already exists. The machinery has been waiting. The order merely activates it. Nothing about the language suggests risk. Nothing acknowledges uncertainty. The words are neutral, procedural, final. They describe actions without describing consequences. They do not mention cost. They do not measure loss. They assume success because success has been assumed before. And because it has been assumed before, it is assumed again. The order continues downward, unchanged. Each level removes another opportunity for reflection. By the time it reaches those who will carry it out, it no longer feels like a choice that was made. It feels like a condition of reality. This is how it begins, not with urgency or fear, but with calm transmission, not with force, but with structure, not with chaos, but with perfect order. And by the time it is fully in motion, there is nothing left that can stop it. The environment that receives the order is built for certainty. Its architecture favors clarity over flexibility. Corridors lead in straight lines. Doors open at assigned hours. Communication follows predetermined paths. Every element exists to remove ambiguity, because ambiguity delays execution. The order enters this environment and is immediately understood, not in meaning but in function. It descends. At the upper levels, the order is absorbed into schedules already dense with instruction. There is no visible disruption. The day continues according to plan. Meetings proceed. Reports are completed. The order is mentioned only to confirm that it has been received. Confirmation is sufficient. There is no requirement to discuss content. Here, authority is not personal. It is procedural. No single individual appears responsible for the order's movement. Each participant interacts only with the portion that reaches them. The system fragments responsibility so efficiently that intent dissolves before it can be questioned. As the order moves downward, it becomes simpler, not shorter, clearer. Each relay removes context that is no longer deemed necessary. What remains is instruction without explanation, direction without justification, purpose without reference. Those positioned to transmit it are trained to recognize the correct form immediately. They know when an order is active, when it supersedes others, when it cannot be delayed. This one meets every criterion. It is complete. It is authorized. It is current. There is no hesitation, because hesitation would signal uncertainty, and uncertainty has already been eliminated by the structure itself. The hierarchy exists to prevent that pause. It ensures continuity, not comprehension. At each level, the order is acknowledged in the same manner. The language does not change. The tone does not shift. There is no space for emphasis or warning. The words are delivered exactly as received. Precision is valued over insight. The system rewards this behavior. Accuracy in transmission is measured, recorded, reinforced. Careers advance not through interpretation, but through reliability. The safest action is always to pass the order along unchanged. Lower still, the environment tightens. The margin for deviation narrows. Timelines become rigid. Resources are allocated according to predefined tables. Movement is synchronized. Everything depends on adherence. Here, the order begins to shape reality. Units adjust their positions. Equipment is prepared. Personnel are reassigned without explanation. No one demands one. Explanations are not part of the process. They are inefficiencies. Questions are not forbidden. They are unnecessary. The structure makes alternatives invisible. There is no forum in which the order can be reconsidered, because reconsideration implies authority, and authority flows in only one direction. The system does not loop. It descends. Each layer assumes that the layer above has already evaluated the order fully. Each layer below assumes that compliance is expected. Between these assumptions, there is no space left for doubt to exist. The efficiency is undeniable. Nothing is lost in transit. Nothing is miscommunicated. The order arrives everywhere exactly as intended. That is the danger. By the time the lowest levels receive it, the order no longer appears as a decision. It appears as an obligation embedded in routine. The system has done its work. The structure has held. And because the structure holds so well, nothing within it can bend. The execution begins without announcement. There is no moment where the order is introduced again. It does not need to be. By the time action starts, the order has already been absorbed into routine. What follows appears less like compliance and more like continuation, as if events are unfolding according to a schedule long ago agreed upon. Movements are synchronized. Timetables are followed precisely. Actions occur at their assigned minutes, not earlier, not later. Each component performs its function in isolation, guided by procedure rather than awareness of the whole. No single element sees enough to question the pattern forming. The order does not require improvisation. It demands alignment. Signals are sent and received. Positions shift. Resources are committed. The system activates in segments, each responding to its own trigger. Everything fits. Everything works. The machinery performs exactly as designed. There is no conversation about the order itself. Communication is limited to confirmation that steps have been completed. Language becomes minimal, functional. Words are used only to indicate status, never meaning. Completed, proceeding, on schedule. Those carrying out the order do not evaluate its wisdom. That function has already been assigned elsewhere. Their responsibility is accuracy. They ensure distances are measured correctly, timings observed precisely, instructions followed to the letter. Deviation would represent failure. Compliance represents success. The environment reinforces this focus. Noise is reduced. Distractions are eliminated. The space is controlled, regulated, predictable. The order fits seamlessly into this controlled world. It does not clash with existing procedures. It activates them. There is no sense of urgency. Urgency suggests uncertainty. Instead, there is calm efficiency. The absence of tension feels earned. Everything is proceeding according to plan. At no point does the system pause to assess whether the conditions assumed by the order still exist. The order does not contain a mechanism for revision. It was not designed to respond. It was designed to be executed. And so it is. As execution continues, Coordination becomes more complex, yet no more reflective. Each component trusts that others are functioning correctly. This trust is not personal. It is institutional. The structure itself is trusted more than individual perception. No one stands back far enough to see the full shape of what is unfolding. The system does not allow for that vantage point. Each participant operates within a narrow frame, confident that the whole has been accounted for elsewhere. Silence dominates. Not the silence of fear or doubt, but the silence of routine. The absence of alarm signals that nothing is wrong. The lack of interruption confirms that the process is intact. The order advances step by step, exactly as written. Nothing interferes. Nothing interrupts. Nothing questions. And because nothing questions, nothing corrects. The first signs do not announce themselves as failure. They appear as minor deviations that fall within acceptable margins. A delay measured in minutes, not hours. A report that arrives slightly out of sequence but still within protocol. A discrepancy small enough to be absorbed by contingency tables already prepared for variance. The system registers these signals without reacting to them. Reaction requires thresholds. Thresholds have not been crossed. The order remains active. As execution continues, the environment begins to change in ways the order does not account for. Conditions shift incrementally, not dramatically. Each change is small enough to be rationalized, categorized, deferred. The structure is designed to filter noise, and these early signs are filtered out. Procedures continue to be followed. Adjustments are made only where explicitly authorized. Nothing in the order permits deviation. Nothing instructs reassessment. The absence of such language is not considered an omission. It is considered clarity. Information moves upward, but it does not travel intact. It is summarized, standardized, stripped of texture. Reports are formatted to match expectation. Anomalies are translated into neutral terms. The system prefers coherence over accuracy. What cannot be reconciled with the order is softened until it fits. Those closest to the execution notice irregularities first. They are not dramatic enough to warrant interruption. Interruptions require justification, and justification requires authority. Authority is not present at this level. The structure has already decided where authority resides. So the irregularities are noted, logged, and set aside. The order continues to dictate timing. Schedules remain fixed. Resources are committed according to the original plan, even as conditions diverge from its assumptions. The structure does not permit reallocation without authorization, and authorization would require acknowledgement that the order may no longer apply. That acknowledgement does not occur. As the system progresses, coordination begins to strain, not because of disobedience, but because of precision. Each component adheres so strictly to its instructions that the collective outcome begins to misalign. Actions that were meant to complement one another now interfere subtly, their timing no longer harmonized by reality, only by paper. The system responds by enforcing discipline more tightly. Additional confirmations are required. Reporting intervals increase. Oversight intensifies, not to question the order, but to ensure compliance remains absolute. The response to emerging friction is not flexibility, but reinforcement. Silence is interpreted as success. The absence of explicit alarm is taken as proof that the order remains valid. Warnings that do not use the correct language are not recognized as warnings. At higher levels, the situation appears stable. The metrics used to assess progress still align with expectation. Deviations have been normalized. Losses are not yet counted. Disruption has not yet been named. The order remains unchanged. As execution continues, the cost of altering course increases. Resources have been committed too far forward. Timelines have progressed beyond reversal points. To stop now would require admitting that the structure itself has misjudged. The system is not designed to make that admission in motion, so it moves forward. The gap between instruction and reality widens gradually. No single moment marks the transition. There is no clear signal that the order has failed, only a growing accumulation of mismatches that cannot be resolved within existing parameters. Yet the order persists because persistence is what orders do. It is still being followed, still being enforced, still being treated as authoritative. And by the time the structure begins to recognize that something is wrong, the mechanisms required to correct it have already been rendered unusable by the order itself. The collapse does not arrive as a single event. It unfolds as a sequence of consequences that no longer align with their causes. Actions continue to produce results, but those results no longer serve the purpose that initiated them. The system remains active, disciplined, intact, yet what it produces is increasingly detached from what it was meant to achieve. At first, the scale is unclear. Loss is registered in fragments, separated by distance and time. Reports arrive incomplete, delayed, reformatted to fit existing categories. Numbers are adjusted to remain comparable with projections that no longer reflect reality. The structure continues to measure progress using instruments calibrated for a situation that no longer exists. Execution continues because stopping would require a new order. Coordination breaks down not through chaos, but through excess order. Units act in perfect accordance with instructions that now contradict one another. Movements overlap where they were meant to converge. Timelines intersect where they were meant to sequence. Each action, correct in isolation, contributes to interference at scale. The system interprets this interference as friction, not failure. Friction is expected. Friction can be overcome with discipline, so discipline is increased. Additional directives are issued, not to revise the original order, but to enforce it more rigorously. Compliance is monitored more closely. Deviations are corrected faster. The structure tightens around the error, accelerating its effects. Resources are consumed at a rate no longer sustainable. Resupply follows prearranged routes that no longer reach their intended destinations. Adjustments would require authorization that cannot be granted without revisiting the original assumptions. Those assumptions remain embedded in the order, and the order remains valid. Communication grows more frequent and less informative. Messages confirm receipt, status, compliance. They avoid interpretation. They avoid implication. Language narrows until it can no longer describe what is happening, only whether procedures are being followed. They are. As the consequences accumulate, visibility decreases. The scale of loss exceeds the capacity of the reporting structure to represent it. What cannot be counted is delayed. What cannot be delayed is generalized. Precision gives way to abstraction. The system continues to operate, but its outputs no longer influence decision-making. The order has already decided the outcome. Everything that follows serves only to complete it. At some point, the distinction between execution and collapse disappears. The two become indistinguishable. Carrying out the order and sustaining the failure become the same action. There is no singular moment when this is acknowledged. Acknowledgement would imply agency. Instead, the collapse is managed administratively. Loss is recorded where possible. Absence is noted. Functions are reassigned to account for vacancies without naming their cause. The structure adapts superficially while remaining fundamentally unchanged. Attempts to mitigate damage are constrained by protocol. Actions are taken to preserve coherence, not effectiveness. The system prioritizes internal consistency over external outcome. It preserves its form even as its purpose dissolves. What remains of the original objective becomes secondary to maintaining order itself. By the time the failure is undeniable, it is also irreversible. The mechanisms that could have halted or redirected the process were never activated, because the order did not allow for their use. The structure did not malfunction. It performed exactly as designed. The scale of the result becomes apparent only in retrospect, and even then, it resists clear definition. There is no single point of failure to isolate, no breach to repair, no individual action that can be reversed. There is only the accumulated effect of obedience. The system reaches the end of the order's scope. The final instructions are carried out. The last confirmations are logged. The machinery slows, not because it chooses to, but because there is nothing left for it to process. What has been destroyed is not only material or personnel, but coherence itself. The structure remains standing, But what it commands no longer exists in the form it was designed to control. The order is complete. And in completing it, the system has exhausted the very force it depended upon to function. Afterward, the system closes around the absence. The order no longer circulates. It is not rescinded, corrected, or amended. It simply reaches the end of its administrative life. Its active status expires. Files are marked complete. References to it are reduced to identification numbers and dates. Language drains of weight. The structure absorbs the outcome without pause. Operations resume under new directives that do not acknowledge the previous one. Schedules are rewritten. Allocations are recalculated. Empty spaces are accounted for as variables rather than consequences. The machinery adjusts its balance without examining what caused the imbalance. There is no formal reckoning, no single moment where the failure is named as such. To name it would require definition, and definition would require agreement on responsibility. The structure avoids both. Reports are compiled with care. They describe conditions, not causes. They measure loss without tracing its origin. Where explanation would be expected, there is neutrality. Where judgment might appear, there is procedural language. What cannot be reconciled is archived. Those who remain within the system continue their functions. Positions are filled or left vacant according to policy. Duties are reassigned without comment. Training materials are updated only where absolutely necessary. And even then, the revisions are phrased as general improvements, not corrections. The order itself is not taught as a lesson. It is treated as an event, isolated and closed. Its documentation exists, but it is rarely consulted. Not because it is forbidden, but because it offers nothing the structure is prepared to absorb. Silence becomes institutional. In time, references to the failure lose specificity. Numbers replace descriptions. Dates replace narratives. The scale remains, but its texture disappears. What happened becomes something that occurred, not something that was done. The system continues to function because it must. Its purpose is continuity. Interruption would imply vulnerability. Instead, it reinforces procedure, emphasizing clarity, discipline, adherence. The same qualities that carried the order forward are strengthened. New orders move through the same channels. They are received in the same way. Logged, transmitted, acknowledged. The language remains precise. The hierarchy remains intact. The confidence embedded in routine remains undisturbed. Nothing within the structure explicitly changes, because change would require the admission that obedience alone is not neutral. The system is not built to make that admission. It is built to endure. The failure does not echo loudly. It settles quietly into institutional memory, where it loses form and meaning. It becomes background, part of the accumulated weight that does not slow movement, only deepens it. Somewhere, the mechanisms that once carried the order stand ready again. The pathways remain clear. The protocols remain valid. The structure waits, not in anticipation but in certainty. Another order will arrive. It will move through the same channels, with the same efficiency, guided by the same assumptions. It will be followed exactly as given. And the system will once again mistake continuity for control.